This canyon ranks among the most severe landscapes on Earth. Vertical rock faces plunge hundreds of meters into a broad, shadowed valley, turning even the simplest connection between the two sides into an extreme engineering problem. Yet, this is precisely the place chosen for a bridge. Before a single piece of steel or concrete can rise, engineers must map every contour of the terrain, measure exact distances across the void, analyze the strength and composition of the rock, and determine the only safe locations where massive loads can be transferred into the mountain. This is the site of the Huajiang Canyon Bridge, spanning one of the deepest and most unforgiving gaps ever attempted. Every calculation must be exact from the first moment, because once work begins, there is no margin for correction. To join the opposite cliffs, almost the entire structure has to be assembled while suspended in open air. Nothing can rest on solid ground in the middle. The canyon itself offers no temporary support. The only solid points are the two rock faces that will eventually carry the whole weight. Before any tower or cable can appear, the rock must be made trustworthy. Everything that follows will hang from these anchor zones. Deep into both cliff faces, crews drill long, precise holes and insert high-strength steel anchors that lock unstable layers firmly into the solid mountain behind them. These anchors will later absorb forces measured in thousands of tons. Wind howls through the gorge, dust rises with every drill, and loose debris constantly threatens the work platforms. This phase will become invisible once the bridge is finished, yet it is one of the most decisive. The entire structure will stand or fail according to the strength locked into the rock at this stage. Viewers will never see most of these anchors again, but they are what hold the Huajiang Canyon Bridge in place across the empty air. All the load of the finished bridge will pass through these points and disappear into the mountain. Everything begins with these foundations. Once the cliffs are stabilized, the next task is to create bases solid enough to support the towering pylons. Rock surfaces are carefully cut, shaped, and leveled. Reinforced concrete blocks are formed and poured directly against the anchored rock, creating an unbreakable bond between artificial structure and natural stone. Every force the bridge will ever experience, traffic, wind, temperature change, the weight of the span itself, must travel safely through these foundations into the mountain. For the first time, something permanent takes shape. Clear, massive platforms that mark the true starting points of what will rise above the canyon. These foundations will carry everything that follows. From here, the towers begin their climb. They will eventually reach hundreds of meters into the sky, and the entire span across the canyon will rest on them. Steel reinforcement cages rise first, followed by concrete poured in carefully controlled stages. Each new lift of the formwork adds another layer. What was once only a raw cliff edge slowly transforms into a vertical structural system reaching upward into empty space. The towers grow straight toward the sky, destined to support the full length of the Huajiang Canyon Bridge. At this altitude, wind, balance, and millimeter precision become as critical as the concrete and steel themselves. As the pylons climb higher, the difficulty multiplies. Work now takes place far above the valley floor, where gusts sweep unpredictably through the gorge, and the sense of height becomes constant. Specialized self-climbing formwork systems allow the platforms to rise with the structure, carrying crews, equipment, and materials upward in successive cycles. Day and night, the concrete and steel continue to extend the towers. From this point onward, almost everything is built while hanging in midair, suspended above the canyon with no ground beneath. The scale begins to feel almost unreal. These towers will soon carry every kilogram of the finished bridge. When the pylons finally reach their full height, the project can at last begin to stretch across the void. First, lightweight pilot lines are sent from one tower to the other. Stronger cables follow, pulled carefully into position and anchored at the tops of the towers. Each cable is tensioned with exacting control. Together, they create the primary framework that will support the bridge deck while it is still floating in open air. This is the first element of the Huajiang Canyon Bridge that actually hangs above the canyon, and it is only the beginning. For the first time, a visible connection appears across the emptiness, yet the gap between the approaching sides remains wide. The two halves of the deck begin to advance toward each other. Every new segment narrows the distance, but the closer the ends come, the more exacting every measurement must be. Wind pressure, cable tension, and precise alignment all demand continuous adjustment. Even a small deviation at this stage could affect the entire structure. The remaining open space shrinks steadily, building anticipation toward one decisive moment. At last, the final segment is lifted into position high above the canyon floor. Suspended between the two advancing ends, it is aligned with extreme care. When the edges meet and lock together, the structure becomes a single continuous span for the first time. Bolts are tightened, joints are secured, and the supporting cables are adjusted to accept the full load. What had been two separate constructions is now one bridge crossing the entire canyon. With the main span complete, the surface must be prepared for traffic. Protective layers are applied, followed by a smooth roadway surface of carefully laid and compacted asphalt. Guardrails are installed along both edges. Expansion joints are placed so the bridge can expand and contract safely as temperatures change. The raw skeletal structure gradually becomes a usable roadway. Every system required for safe daily operation is fitted into place. Now that the Huajiang Canyon Bridge is connected, the work shifts from pure structure to a finished path people and vehicles can actually travel. Every detail at this stage focuses on safety, especially at such extreme height. The Huajiang Canyon Bridge itself is finished. Before it can open, every system must be tested under controlled conditions. Lighting is installed along the full length. Protective coverings shield the main cables. Sensors are placed throughout the structure to monitor movement, stress, and temperature. Engineers examine every connection and component, leaving nothing unchecked. Even the smallest detail matters, because the bridge must perform reliably under real traffic, real weather, and the constant forces of the canyon environment. Before the first public vehicles are allowed to cross, the structure is subjected to carefully planned load tests. Heavy vehicles are positioned at calculated intervals along the span to simulate the weight and distribution of actual traffic. Sensors record how the bridge responds, how much it deflects, how the cables adjust, how the foundations absorb the load. Every reading is reviewed in detail. Only when the data matches the design expectations exactly is the bridge declared ready for service. This is the moment when all the preceding work is proven. Everything is in place. The Huajiang Canyon Bridge stands complete and verified. From both sides of the canyon, the path is now continuous. The structure is stable. All readings remain within safe limits. The confirmation is final. The Huajiang Canyon Bridge is open and performing exactly the task for which it was designed, carrying traffic safely across one of the most extreme natural gaps on the planet.